Welcome to the August the 17th, 2004 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. As we bring you the history of our city, some of the things, people that have made history, and some people that are making history this very day, and that's the case today. We have history made in the past that we're documenting and redocumenting, and we're very excited to bring you a history number 524. And this is entitled, sort of, The Buffalo Wallows. And we're just so pleased to have three people on the dais today that are going to contribute in some way to the excitement of the Buffalo Wallows in Grand Prairie, Texas. Tammy Chan, we're very delighted to have you back.
Thank you, Ms. Ruthie. Glad to be here.
Yes, and wonderful. Colonel Don Bills, we're so pleased to have you here representing the junior ROTCs both at Grand Prairie High School and South Grand Prairie High, even though you're clustered in the Warrior territory.
That is true.
That's wonderful, yes. And we also have Dave Evans, who is with the Covenant Group. Yes. And if you don't know about the Covenant Group, they have to do with Mountain Creek retirement for we senior citizens, and they have allowed a buffalo wallow on their property in their territory. Now, if that isn't a mixed mash of things for us to discuss today, go for it, Tammy, you're first.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ruthie. Really, all the credit goes to you, I think, I have to say. I became involved in the project after taking a tour of the city with Charles Powers, and he showed me where you used to live and several other historical sites in the city. I keep messing up here, but anyway, he showed me these buffalo wallows at the corner of Freetown and Corn Valley, and I'd never seen a buffalo wallow. And I've since learned they're also called prairie dimples, where the buffaloes used to roam through and kind of grovel in the in the clay soil and left little divots. And it's hard for stuff to grow in these divots because the soil is so compacted. But when we drove by that, he said, you pay attention to that side. If anything ever tries to develop there, you make sure you work to try to help save that, because Miss Ruthie, that's a big deal to Miss Ruthie, that site right there, those buffalo wallows, and he didn't want to have anything happen there. So when this came through the Development Review Committee, I remembered that. I remembered that I kind of imagined you laying in front of a tractor to prevent any development going over the buffalo wallows.
I have done that before also.
So I mentioned it, and you have championed the wallows, and as usual, a lot of times you'll assign some things to get preserved and taken care of. And aside of that, you bring trash from office with diapers and want me to send letters to the diaper makers. So this is another project from Ruthie Jackson. And the developer, the Covenant Group that came in, Mr. Evans, they agreed generously to shift their whole development 105 total square feet to the south. It was, or linear feet, it was going to be more northward. It would have covered up, eaten up all of the wallows. The water was going to shoot across the wallows into the existing storm drainage system. And at the request of the council and you at the lead, they agreed to shift it southward, create a retaining pond in the southwest corner, I think, southeast corner of the development, at I think a larger expense to themselves, and promised not to touch a single tree or anything in there and let us have at it with the Prairie Preserve project. So
it's wonderful. Well, prior to that, about 15 years ago, a young man came that I became acquainted with told me that there was a buffalo wallow in Grand Prairie. I documented him on television, and from that stemmed all of this other happening. So that's where we are with it today. Keep going, Tammy.
Okay. Well, what we did, once this got assigned, Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful wanted it because it's a beautification project, it's a historic project, and we did ask the Historical Commission via the liaison, Amy Sprinkles, if it would be all right if we partnered with them, so that once this is completely preserved, that tours could be arranged via the Historical Commission, Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful, the historical organization, and the retirement facility. So it will be fenced in to protect it, also to protect the property. What we did is we hired a consultant from the Heard Museum of Natural Science in McKinney. Dr. Steigman is a naturalist there. and brought him out to meet with Mr. Evans, their architect, and myself to make some recommendations of what could we do to preserve that prairie and make it more like it was at the time the buffaloes were there. Since then, a second growth forest has grown in. It's not the original prairie. So, Mr. Evans, we've all met together to try to figure out how can we still have trees there and have a prairie there. So we set about a deliberate restoration plan, which includes taking out all the dead growth that's on the ground, limbing up any dead growth. There's a lot of dead growth there. Removing any dead trees, and then any trees of a really small caliper we would go ahead and take out, leaving the larger circumference trees there for the neighborhood as a buffer with the retirement living community, the Mountain Creek Retirement Living Community. So I think the residents inside will have a beautiful view, and the residents next door to the Prairie Preserve will have a beautiful view too. The Prairie Preservation Project has turned out to be a little bit more than certainly I can handle alone. So over the spring, the Commission partnered with the Youth for Environmental Action program and got youth out there to help us do some of the underbrush carrying. But we really needed a champion for the project, someone to take it on and agree to work this project till it's finished, and that's what the JROTC has done.
All right,
Yeah.
you got us to Colonel Bills right now, didn't you? That's wonderful. Colonel Bills, what kind of approach did you have from this committee to get you and all of the junior ROTCs even remotely interested in a buffalo wallow?
Well, our program has only been in existence for 2 years at South, and it's now 5 years at Grand Prairie. One of the main directions that this program goes is in community service. The mission of the Junior ROTC program is to help motivate young people to be better citizens. Consequently, we want to give back to the community. In that regard, I have been working over the past 2 years with Ms. Chan on projects that we could get involved with that would help the city of Grand Prairie.
Yes.
We met a few months ago to see what was available for this summer, and the timing worked out just beautifully because she said, you know, I've got this project, I need some more help, I need some supervision, something where I can just give it to someone. Well, that's what we really enjoy being able to do. We have, between the two schools, we've got 300 students. We've got a lot of youth, just over 300 this year between the two. We have a lot of youth leaders within this organization. And one thing, in addition to just basic community service, that we are required to do every year is what is called a service learning project. And this fits so beautifully into that package. First of all, it's something that we're doing right now. The students need to learn what is the necessity of this? What is this project all about?
Why is it worthy?
Why is it worthy? Absolutely. And so in that regard, Ms. Chan is going to be coming over to the school and giving a presentation to the students on what this is all about. You know, why should we spend our time doing this? As a result of that, they then start putting this project together. They look at what is it going to take as far as manpower, resources, things of that nature.
And sweat.
Absolutely, absolutely. And given the temperatures and that right now, there will be a lot of that. But they do the initial research, the background information. They look at planning the whole project out and then implementing that plan. And then when we finish, we'll go back and do what we call an after-action report to see what we did well, what possibly we could have done better for the future. And so it's a great opportunity for these young people to be involved in a major project that they can learn from and they can be directly involved in.
I think that's wonderful. And who is in charge of the junior ROTC at Grand Prairie High School?
At Grand Prairie, the senior Army instructor is Chief Warrant Officer Tom Nedler. He's a CW4. And up there with him, who has been there since the beginning of the program, is First Sergeant Bill DeLeon.
Okay.
And at South, I have with me First Sergeant David Nash.
That's wonderful. And between all of this supervision that you have and 300 people to pick from, oh, it's going to be so exciting.
Well, we're excited about it. It's certainly a worthwhile, worthy project, something that's going to be around for a long time, something that the students can take a lot of pride in.
That's wonderful. Now, that gets me to Dave Evans. because you're on his property.
We are indeed.
Covenant. But before there was covenant, there was the housing and what do I have here? The Grand Prairie Housing Finance Corporation, which is an arm of the city, had this land under their direction. And when they appeared before the city council, we had their feet to the fire because I said, I will not vote for this unless we will have an opportunity to save some of the buffalo wallow. And you know, they were the nicest group. They promised us everything, and you know, I believe they're going to give it to us. Because after it left Housing Finance Corporation, it was then, of course, championed by the Covenant Corporation, I guess you would call it. And we have some great friends there because they've listened to our plea. And Dave, tell us a little bit about when you first heard that there might be a buffalo wallow on the project. What did you think?
I actually did not even have a clue what a waller was, and
welcome to the club.
You know, I was born in Buffalo, New York,
Yes.
and I'm almost Canadian. You know, so
Yes.
I had no idea what a buffalo waller was,
Yes.
but it was clear that it was important to you and to the council. And also very important to the Grand Prairie Housing Finance
Yes, it was.
Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make sure that this part of the property that they own and the project that they're owners of, the retirement community, they wanted it to be inclusive of those wallers. And so that's where it's going to be.
Don't you think this is going to be a real drawing card for groups to come out and do the buffalo wallow and then maybe just happen over to your place and say, I really do like a retirement center that would go along with the community and preserve buffalo wallows. And I know it must have been expensive.
Well, it wasn't all that expensive to the Grand Prairie Housing Finance Corporation. I mean, they wanted it to happen, and they set aside funds. They were very diligent in making sure that this was going to be attractive and a place that will attract people. The Grand Prairie Housing Finance Corporation board and Cindy Pittman, the executive director, were all in favor of making sure that this happened.
Now, Cindy Pittman is a Grand Prairiean at heart.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the reasons that because of the importance of her job as executive director, she did a lot of steering in the direction to help us with this, and I thank her so much. And her parents, and especially her dad when he ran the Ford company in Grand Prairie, Texas, was a real asset to, and community-minded people, and I think she's carrying on the tradition of the family, don't you?
She is, yes, ma'am.
And so do you think that when you turn loose all of these junior ROTCers and they make it beautiful, I think you're going to be proud of that, and what do you have to say about that?
I am already proud of it, and glad to have the Army involved. We are blessed by the fact that they're going to come in and clean that area up and help preserve those buffalo wallers.
Well, it wouldn't hurt if you'd brag on Tammy a little, because she took the bull by the horns, speaking of buffalo horns or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
And has really championed this for us because she knew that there was a real desire. And I don't know why we had this burning desire, but there was a young man that I interviewed on television. I'd like to drop his name. Merle Adair said his grandfather told him about the buffalo wallows and about their farm, and he's the one that gave me more information than anyone. And then, of course, Mr. Powers came along and investigated the Galloway farm on which this was the original farm that it was located on, and the Galloways gave us a great number of farm implements that we have now on display down at the Bowles home, Jordan Bowles home in Grand Prairie, which is another one of our historic houses. And so we just hope that someday they'll be honored because they've preserved the buffalo wallow and have preserved the farming implements for us. So that may be coming down the pike one day. And Tammy, what else?
Well, a couple of things about the project. The restoration project, again, will require the removal of some trees, but we'll leave some trees.
You're going to take out the bad trees.
Yeah, the bad trees and some of the smaller understory trees.
Yes.
But we are also going to just mow all of that wild grass and, sorry, Colonel Bills, but poison ivy. We're going to mow all of that down,
Yeah.
and we hope to come back with some more appropriate prairie grasses that would have been growing here.
Oh, the wonderful prairie grasses.
This is a full prairie restoration project. It's going to take years. It's not something
Yeah.
that we're going to be able to do in 1 year together. I don't know if I told you that. And then also, I want to let the public know too that what they'll see is when they drive by, you might not see the wallows from the roadside, except maybe in the late winter when the
green
grass
stuff.
is down, you know, when the prairie grass is down. And then when we do our maintenance mowings twice a year to ensure the survivability of these prairie grasses that we're going to try to grow. You know, back in the past, they would have done wild burns,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. We couldn't do that next to your
No.
retirement living facility, so we'll do the mowing. We also plan to work with the JROTC and the Covenant Group to put in a walkway through there that will be handicap friendly, so that you can kind of come through. It'll have what I envision are boardwalk kind of cul-de-sacs that go in, and you can go kind of, oh, there's a wallow over there,
Yes.
but not step in the wallow or destroy the wallow. And all of this will be done in such a way. I have to really thank Mr. Evans and his group. They have kept every promise they made to us, which is a beautiful fence on the outside and no disruption on the land where the wallows are at all. So
And respect their privacy in their part of their land that they have there in their retirement center, because I know that they will have people that live in the retirement center. And by the way, I believe that's called Mountain Creek.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Mountain Creek. Oh, I found a wonderful ad in the paper this morning. That's Mountain Creek, and that's what we're talking about. And at Mountain Creek Retirement Center is where our buffalo wallows are going to be. And there's going to be no charge for people to come and see these, right, Tammy?
right, you'll have to make an appointment, and
Yes.
as we get this closer to development, you know, to finishing out, we'll work with Mr. Evans. When is your facility going to be completely?
Scheduled for January, first part of January.
Okay. What?
January 2005, which
Yes,
is
ma'am.
right down the pike, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's really good. And Tammy, there were other people that have helped you tremendously with this. I believe you had some.
Yes, again, the Youth for Environmental Action helped. Also, I have to thank Judge Robb and Judge Alvarado for
Yes.
sending some community service workers my way. And I also really, in a large way, need to thank the Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful shade makers. Those are over 45 volunteer foresters that we've trained how to trim and take down trees, and they'll be helping us as we instruct Colonel Bills and his group on the proper way to limb these trees and remove any trees that we are going to. So the shade makers have been great. The chairperson of the Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful Commission, Mike Rayfeld,
Yes.
has been out there with his tools. That he's a shade keeper. Also, Bill DeLeon at Grand Prairie High, who's going to help with the JROTC, is a shade maker. So I just, when Colonel Bills came to me and said that he was looking for a project, I couldn't think of a better project for this, and I feel so comfortable and safe turning this historic project over. I think you were going to do something in the realm of trying to get a historical marker for
Yes.
it.
Yes.
So we want to
Well,
do it right.
it's in the process of getting a Grand Prairie significant landmark. I don't believe they've approved it as yet, but the application is in, and I think y'all have done enough documentation. If they turn that down, we may have to redo the historical minutes, which is possible.
Yeah.
And Tammy, I believe that in North Grand Prairie, even north of Grand Prairie High School at I-30, aren't you having something to do with the painting of all those buffalo and the prairie grasses that are painted underneath the Beltline overpass, underpass, whatever it is?
Ms. Ruthie, thank you for bringing that up. That's just an exciting project for the entire city. I have, other than tree requests, that's the top call I get is who's doing that mural, and we've contracted with artist Tommy Weddle, who's an area resident, and he's doing just an outstanding job painting that mural. Both sides. The theme for the underpass is the Trinity River watershed,
Yes.
and the exterior celebrates the prairie and Grand Prairie, and it's a beautiful complement. We're looking to see, I think, in the future some other prairie things in Grand Prairie. I will, if I can, take a minute to tell you, at Great Southwest and I-20, we're working with the state, with TxDOT and the Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful Commission that won the $155,000 Governor's Community Achievement Award to do an entryway feature at Great Southwest and I-20 that will celebrate also the Prairie. Oh, I can't predict the future, but I'd love to see it incorporate, more of this Prairie idea. I don't know about Buffalo, but also at Fish Creek and I-20, we'll do another Prairie kind of project. So we are the Grand Prairie, and it makes sense to celebrate and take advantage of that history and that title for us, going all the way back to when they first settled. Was it 1875 when the train came through here? And,
Yes.
Is that true when the lady said?
No.
Oh, okay. Then I won't even bring it up on your history story.
That is folklore, and A.C. Green, who is the greatest historian we've had in this region, documented that, said that the railroad, because we are in the lower portion of the Grand Prairie, where the bottom part of that goes all the way up into the Dakotas, that the railroad is the one that coined the phrase Grand Prairie. And that's his documentation, and which our head librarian, Kathy Ritterhouse, also agrees with him. And I also agree with him to the degree that when the Union Pacific came through Grand Prairie about 2 or 3 years ago, they invited the council to get on in Grand Prairie, take us to Fort Worth, spin around, and then come back through. And when we did, and I got off the train, I got on the back of the train, I said, oh, what a grand Prairie. So we have it documented that there was one little old lady that did it, but they didn't do it then, back in the early days. So that is a jest. I said that in jest, but I had to make that mark, But I would like to get back just a minute with Dave. I want to talk to you about this retirement center. Why did you pick Corn Valley Road and Freetown? Freetown is one of the older roads in Grand Prairie that historically there was a road that came from the Freetown where the slaves had territory out near Hardy Road and the old Antioch Cemetery and everything out near Mountain Creek Lake, the edge of Mountain Creek Lake, and Freetown Road went that way, and there used to be one of the first encampments there, and the Antioch Church, the Black Masonic Lodge, and everything was out in that area. And Freetown Road, you're so near one of the most historic places in Grand Prairie, Texas. And why did you pick that?
Well, the Grand Prairie Housing Finance Corporation hired the Covenant Group to do a search for land. And I came back to the board and offered, from our experience, 4 different locations, but recommended this one because of its proximity to shopping and
everything.
Everything is close by.
Oh, man.
In a residential setting, the history was close by, and that was before I even knew about Waller's. So, but our focus is to honor seniors, to honor their lives, and that location and the connection with the Buffalo Wallers just makes it that much more of a historical area and a place that the seniors can connect to in their history. I can remember one time my mom was talking about seeing the veterans coming home, and she was talking about the Civil War veterans.
War vets.
So all that history my parents taught me, and I wanted to honor all those seniors who live in any of the retirement communities that we are involved in.
Do you think your seniors that will come to your retirement center will be interested in the trail?
Oh, I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Oh, it would be so nice if you could get one of them when we come out to do the trail to kind of host us to
Consider it done, Miss
Jackson.
Jackson.
that would be really, really nice. And that way they can keep their eye on their property that is probably open to public domain only by request, as Tammy has said.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, how many people are you going to have living in your place?
Probably about 150 total, counting.
You have a little town right there.
Absolutely.
Did you know we have some towns in Texas that don't have 150 people living in it?
That's true. Yes, ma'am.
That's a contained little city. Tammy, you're going to have to get an award or something like that for.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That we could get one of those civic awards.
Yes, we
for
could.
partnering
Well,
with the Covenant Group and the JROTC.
Yes.
Well, Ms. Ruthie, another assignment.
Yeah, that's another time. But Colonel Bills, what do your parents of your students that are in the junior ROTC think about them going out in the wilds and in the dangers of this thing, of doing community service? Are they up to that?
They are indeed. They love the idea of their children getting involved. This has always been one of the major features of the program that they've really enjoyed. The discipline of the program, the structure of the program, and the fact that it gives back to the community. It helps them learn responsibility. It teaches them a lot of things they don't get other places. And they are extremely supportive of the community service projects. Now, the poison ivy, that might be something else, but we'll certainly work with that one.
Do you have a leadership in the junior ROTC that, like you have a captain of a group?
We
that's
do
gonna come and
indeed.
this?
We set up, each school is set up as a battalion. So we have a battalion commander, he has an executive officer, they have a full staff, administrative officer, they've got the supply, operations, public relations, and then each class is a separate company, and they have a company commander, first sergeant, squad leaders. So we have a full organization.
Oh, I think that's just wonderful. Tammy, you done good.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ruthie.
Yes, yes. All right, is there any announcement you need to make? We have 3 minutes left on our interview. If we want to testify or something, we can do that right now.
I do have a couple of things, if I may, and
All right.
I hope I don't get in trouble with you. We didn't plan this in advance, but there was another historic cleanup this last weekend. Eagle Scout candidate
yes.
Steve Carrera
Yes.
and his troop, I think it was 588, I hope I don't get in trouble on that troop number, went out to the historic Puget Cemetery.
It's not in Grand Prairie, Texas, does not belong to
I knew I'd
Grand
get in
Prairie.
trouble.
but it was so worthy a project because Dallas has neglected it. The Dallas historical people don't keep up with it, and we just love it, and so we go out and adopt it, right?
Well, and there's some historic Grand Prairie families there,
Oh,
you know.
mercy,
so
yes.
we Keep Grand Prairie Beautiful partnered with Mr. Steve Carrera and the troop, and Lieutenant Colonel Rushing at the base was wonderful.
Yes.
There's a lot to get in there. There is a state historical marker, which I think you helped to fund. And one of the requirements whenever you have a historical marker is that it be accessible to the public. So this one is really a challenge, but there are ways to get in to see the cemetery, and it is incredible. There are graves that date all the way back to 1875
Oh,
in there.
really wonderful markers.
There's a marker from the Spanish-American War there. So it's incredible, or a soldier that served in the Spanish-American
Yes.
War. And Mr. Carrera and his mother, they did great research. What kind of chemicals, what kind of tools can you use to safely clean the marble and
Yes.
granite sandstone headstones?
1 minute.
Okay, Mr. Powers, I want to thank him for his recommendations on how to take care of this. And the City Water Utilities Department, I believe, is going to help us pull the piles out of there because there's a lot of wood waste that they chopped. And I want to tell about 2 dates, if I can, real quick, that's coming
Quickly.
up. Saturday, September 18th, Trinity River Awareness Day. I'm sure you'll do a show
I'll
on
do
that.
that.
Saturday, October 7th, all you Adopt Street groups, we've got our big annual fall trash off that day, and I think we're going to try to do hot dogs. More information will come.
That's wonderful. I want to thank y'all for coming for Buffalo Wallows.
Thank you.
And
It's our
for
pleasure.
history and for all of the things you do for Grand Prairie. I salute you tremendously.
Thank you.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do and document it.